Welcome to the first edition of Honor Thy Vote. I'm your host, Paul Beran.
And I'm your co-host, Cynthia Walsh.
We're former political candidates from Northern Virginia who, like many of you, are very concerned about our nation's election integrity.
We want to make sure that every verifiable legal vote counts.
And only legal, verifiable votes, please.
Not diluted with late, erroneous, and illegal votes.
We've all heard stories about election cheating and rigging. Mainstream media would have you believe these stories have been debunked or conspiracy theories.
We're here to tell you there has been and still is election fraud going on, and we've got the proof.
Yes, we do. In today's episode, we're going to begin the process of revealing just how many ways cheaters can cheat and riggers rig.
Every episode will dig deeper into documented cheating methods one at a time.
So you can keep your eyes open for occurrences like these and report suspicious activity to law enforcement.
But don't stop there. We'd like you to know several websites where you can report suspicious activity too.
Yep, these include OperationEyeball.com, supported by the well-respected Virginia Project PAC.
Operation Eyeball is jam-packed with election integrity information, including a list of convicted offenders who were caught in the act of election or voter fraud.
And who have been brought to justice.
We're talking fines, prison sentences, and for non-citizens, deportation.
You'll also find an impressive list of volunteer election integrity groups.
The best part, Operation Eyeball has started an integrity reward fund for tips that lead to an arrest and conviction of anyone tampering with our elections, a bounty reward for turning them in.
Donations are flowing into the Election Integrity Reward Fund. You should donate too.
Get rewarded for tips that lead to an arrest and conviction.
This includes illegal voting by non-citizens in federal elections, which is against the law.
We here at Honor Thy Vote support anything that brings honesty and fairness back to elections.
Every U.S. citizen should be doing their part to protect our voting rights.
You're going to hear more unique information like this here on Honor Thy Vote that you won't find anywhere else.
And before you forget, click like and subscribe. Help us to bring all the latest election integrity information to you.
You'll get notified as soon as episodes are published.
On the average, once a week.
Today's guest is our friend Tony Sabio.
Tony is a retired CIA agent, Secret Service, Marine Special Ops instructor, and former director of security for a private company that covered Trump rallies prior to this year.
We'll hear what he has to say about the attempt on President Trump's life July 13th.
We'll bring him in right after this.
This year's presidential election is most critical for the survival of our nation. Only with extreme scrutiny by American people can we be assured our elections are true and honest. Be very watchful at all levels of government. Let those individuals responsible for counting and reporting votes know in no uncertain terms that any suspicious activity will be immediately reported to the authorities and posted online. Please visit Operation Eyeball to see all the many ways elections have been altered by malicious actors right before our eyes. We cannot rely on conventional law enforcement channels to catch all these criminals and bring them to justice. We are all called to action. We need to be vigilant and watchful. Go to OperationEyeball.com. Keep in mind, it is illegal for non-citizens to vote anywhere in the United States in a federal election. Come to Operation Eyeball, offer your tips and suggestions. There is a reward for any tips that lead to the arrest and conviction of anyone attempting to alter the election illegally. Go to OperationEyeball.com.
Welcome to the show, Tony. It's
Hey,
been a while since we've seen you.
It has been.
Now, you ran also for office here in Fairfax County, Virginia.
Yes.
And it didn't work for you.
Well, some will question, the race itself,
Yeah.
and the whole setup.
Well, there's a lot of stories, as I said earlier in the opening, of malfeasance. Stories that you hear and that the media would downplay and say it's fake. Okay, yeah. Fake news. The fact is, there's a lot of malfeasance going on, and in virtually every county across the country. People who are involved in the election process, they want their candidate to win, and they're looking for every opportunity they can to legally or even illegally tip the scales. And we've seen some of that here in our own county. I know you have, and so has Cindy. So we've dedicated the whole show right now to really get to understand the ways things are being done. And we are looking at each way in each episode. The one way that we want you to help us to explore that is so important and so very much in your expertise is what the heck happened on July 13th? They were trying to affect the election in a biggest, most serious way. Tell us your perspective.
Well, we start looking at election integrity, and there's things that people do to go against their political rivals. And one of the things that we've been seeing, and I don't think this is something that they purposely planned, but they have planted seeds in certain people, especially when you start looking at people that have mental disorders.
Yeah.
And they're built within this culture of hate. And so that's exactly what's happening right now. You start planting these little seeds of hate. And so when we start looking at what is happening today, this is a long process. Right now, Trump represents the exact opposite of where this normal socialism, progressiveness wants to go towards. He wants to go more back into the Reagan era, and I say that Trump is more of a Reagan-style president than anything else. He has a lot of common values and perception on the world. They don't want to go down that direction. They want to go more in a progressive new world order type of thing.
So they got to get him out of the way. Now, as I understand it, there was a lot of talk about crooks working alone or possibly working with others. What do you think about that?
There's not enough there to actually go through the facts.
But the seeds, though,
Yes,
came from someone else.
the seeds are always.
Yeah.
I mean, you could talk about the seeds coming from regular school.
Right.
I mean, how much seeds are being planted right now? Anti-patriotism seeds. I want to really look at the breakdown within the Secret Service because it should have never got to that point.
Right.
And so this is something when I look at doing threat assessment risk analysis, a complete failure.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing. I came from Secret Service and CIA. There is nothing for me to protect with this.
Complete failure
Yeah.
in what way?
Well, complete failure in a basic way of doing an advance. When you create an advance,
Explain me.
Yeah, I'm also going to run some video at the time what you're talking about.
Okay.
Just kind of break it down. What steps would you have taken in preparation for that event?
so anytime you do a rally or event, anywhere the president's going to go, a former president, you send advance agents out there. So you're going to have a tactical advance agent, and you have a regular site advance agent. They're in charge of looking at the layers of security. So you want the close-in layer of security, closest to the president, former president, then the middle, and then the outer. So you got 3 levels, right? So when you do this,
There's 3 different teams?
it's 3 different levels pushing out.
Okay.
Now, when you look at this, when I go through a threat assessment risk analysis, I look at the possible threats. Where can these threats come from that's going to affect the President of the United States? Obviously, that building is a major threat. Now, there's a lot of things going back and forth. Local law enforcement should have been on top of the roof, not on top of the roof. They're inside. Who's ultimately in charge? The Secret Service.
The local law enforcement not talking to Secret Service and vice versa. What do you think happened there?
That's a complete breakdown right there, and I understand the reason why. It's because
Why?
you're using 2 different radio systems. Now, for me in the Secret Service, to push out encrypted radio systems to local law enforcement, there's a trust factor there. They're not vetted the same way. They don't have TS/SCI.
Couldn't Secret Service use the local?
That's what happens. It goes to a control center, and once a control center, then it has to push it out. So
It slows it down, doesn't
it
it?
slows it down big time. But for this particular thing, it was 90 minutes of this guy bouncing around.
Yeah, right.
And I can tell you what the failures were. The failures were A, you put local law enforcement in a position where they're not trained in those certain areas. Okay?
Right.
Law enforcement is trained to react to situations. They get a call, they go and deal with it. They're not trained in the aspect of protective operations where you're identifying potential threats and putting mitigations in place. They're responding units. And they're fantastic at what they do. But they're 2 different realms. One in protection is identifying potential risk, seeing these vulnerabilities, and mitigating so nothing happens. Where law enforcement will understand there's risk all over, and we're going to respond to it. So that rooftop should have been covered. Ultimately,
Why?
falls within it falls within the Secret Service to cover that. Why wasn't it? Numerous reasons. One, not enough Secret Service personnel. They only have, I think, about 3 to 5 agents on the outer ring. Usually they pull agents from field offices. They didn't have enough. It just so happened that Dr. Joe Biden.
That Joe Biden was close by.
Joe Biden had around at the same time, and he shipped resources over there. So now you got to look at one, why we ship resources towards a sitting first lady over the presidential candidate, former president.
The venues were
Who
different. Hers
also
was
has-
indoors
yes.
and his was outdoors.
But
So
also,
it's
you got to
different.
look at the threat level. When I'm doing the threat assessment and analyzing this, the threat level on former President Trump is 1,000 times higher
Way more.
than Dr. Joe Biden. It's night and day. So resources should be shifted over more towards the former president. That right there is a failure within itself.
Whose decision would that be? Would that go all the way to the top? Chief?
The ultimate decision goes to protect the operations. Protect the operations actually falls at the time, I believe it fell under the acting director of the Secret Service, Ronald Rowe.
Okay.
He's actually acting right now.
Right.
It actually should have went to his desk. As far as I know, he was in charge of protective operations.
What about Cheeto seems a lot shorter than Trump. You can't protect somebody who you're smaller than they are.
So in protective operations, anytime you're doing anything of this nature, you have to throw out this stuff of equity.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
You got to look at what you're trying to do, what you're trying to accomplish. It's mission first. Having a protectee that's about 6'4", and having a female that's 5'6",
Yeah, it's
does
just
not work.
Yeah.
Sorry. But what
It's called logistics, right?
we ran into is a culture of diversity.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to be more diverse.
You're gonna hire a woman, hire one that's 6'5".
And it's not the fact of hiring women, it's understanding what is my protectee, who is my protectee,
Yeah.
and who is best to
Parameters,
protect.
yeah.
Bigger than the person.
Well, I mean, you got to look at this. If I need to get that protectee off the X, I may have to pick that person up.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way
No way.
a female that's 5'6" is going to be able to pick up former President Trump. There is no physical way to get him off the X. I mean, I'm 6 foot.
Should be
I
able to.
Can, but it's going to be a hard time for me.
Yeah.
Imagine a female.
Now, when you say
5'6".
the X, you mean where he's standing?
The X is anywhere the threat's at.
Okay.
Anywhere the exposure of the threat is
Gotcha.
Why did they put him on stage if they know there was a threat?
That's a breakdown. I think when we start looking at the investigation, once they start finally doing it, like real investigation, you're going to see the breakdowns within communication. Because you have different layers it has to go through. Like we said, there's a delay right there.
Mm-hmm.
It goes to one central area. From there, they got to push it out. So all that delay time causes a lot.
It's
But
scary.
At the end of the day, he should not never been on stage, and that falls within the site agents. The site lead agent falls within the responsibility of the special agent in charge of his DJ.
Have we learned from these mistakes?
Well, one thing I said after this happened on July 13th was, you're going to see him move to indoor events, which he has been. Indoor events are a lot easier because it's easier to control. But he's going to move into outdoor events. And once you start getting outdoor events, that's where the counter snipers come into effect. That's where technology comes into effect.
But as I understand it, there were not counter snipers back in the days when you were running these Trump rallies.
No, there was counter snipers.
There were? Okay.
What it was
Fake news.
there was something that came out that they were limited on the amount of counter snipers going out. Now, it depends on the location. If I go out there and do a side event and I see multiple areas where people could take multiple line of sight shots towards the president, then I'm going to have to open up more.
Doesn't the Team Trump in this case do the scouting first to see what venue they want to use, and then they have the Secret Service go out to evaluate?
Yes. So what happens is any campaign, staffers, whatever it may be, will set the locations.
Right. Yeah.
Once the location's set, then it gets handed over to the Secret Service.
Right.
It's like the roof.
That's when the Secret Service comes in and does this. Now, the controversy of this roof really falls within placing someone up there. Now, like I said, there's a lot of blame game going everywhere.
Yeah.
The sniper team, the local sniper team that was supposed to be on that roof decided to take a position inside. And I can understand it was really hot, high 90s out there. Nobody wants to be on the rooftop.
You can't really see from there.
But, well, it's not secured. So that is where the failure within the Secret Service. Now, if local law enforcement says we're going to take a position inside, then they should have sent a Secret Service agent to stand on top of that roof. No doubt. You have to hold that position. Now, there's a lot of back and forth on that, but ultimately it falls within the Secret Service. If I'm utilizing local law enforcement and the area I need them to be, they can't do, then
Yeah.
I'm taking my resources and shifting it over to cover that.
The roof was slanted.
What they're trying
Just
to
wanna see
do
what
right
you
now,
say.
what they're trying to do right now is, CYA.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
Yeah.
all they're doing. They come out with multiple excuses and not getting out to
Gee, what does CYA stand for?
Cover your.
Derriere.
Right.
The thing about security is when nothing happens, then everything's great. When there's no attack, nothing, then you did your job. It's when it does happen, is when there's complete failure.
Right.
You're there with the weapons because of what we call Murphy's Law. You do everything right, so they still get through. This wasn't that. This was a complete failure. Just saying, okay, it's just another rally.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right, you guys go inside. We just won't come down.
This is the perfect time to ask you this question.
Mhm.
When I saw it, saw it live.
Yep.
I'm from Pittsburgh, and I know those grounds very well.
Yep.
And in fact, one of my friends was standing right behind the president, and he's going to be one of our future guests here in the next couple of weeks. But when I saw it happen, it just, I don't know, it really took over me.
Yeah.
I was so angry. I was driving.
Yeah.
And I had the phone because I was watching on the way to an event, and I thought, oh my God, I can't go anywhere. I had to pull over. I had to recover from that moment, and then I went home and I cried. I cried for those people. I cried for the president. I cried for us, for this country. Knowing as I do your experience with the Secret Service and your love for the president and all that he stands for, how did it make you feel when you heard?
I will tell you this, being in the field that I'm at, it's anger, a lot of anger. When we joined the Secret Service with my great friends, I still have great friends that left the Secret Service and moved on to other federal jobs. That guys are still there right now. And somewhere between 2002 to 2024, our country's lost its way, especially within our federal government, of understanding that you're protecting an institution, not a person, not a party. Now, we have right now a whole system where party has now infiltrated every aspect of government. And that's the most dangerous thing.
It is.
Reduced down to, A or B. Two political parties, A or B.
That Cheadle left Secret Service and Trump was there and then came back and Biden was there.
And everyone can question, the picking of Cheadle all the way through. She
Jill
was
Biden.
a Secret Service agent. She did oversee the training school at J.J. Raleigh Training Center.
Right.
There was some questionable things that bothered a lot of people over there. It was after I already left, but it dealt with actually reducing standards down. Reducing standards to push more people through to have that balance. It was actually her main goal was to make the Secret Service about 30% females, which is fine. But you have to understand that
They're 6'4".
they still have to be able to do the mission, and you can't reduce down the standard
Right.
because the mission
Can't
doesn't
protect
change.
The president.
The president of the United States does not change. Even Biden is over 6 feet tall. It
Right.
does not change the physical attributes of these candidates. And so when you start doing that, you're putting politics, you're putting, social experiments above the mission. And the mission's black and white. Protect this person at all costs.
Right.
Meaning, you're going to, at some point in time, going to have to take this person and move them off that X. Get them out of the area. And when you're not doing that, when you physically aren't able to do that, then you're making this mission detrimental.
This is a perfect time to ask the question. Because we've all seen the video, we've all heard the talk, and we've watched and listened to all the different comments and criticisms, the confidence level of the American people on our law enforcement, and in particular the Secret Service, is probably at an all-time low right now. Having come from the Secret Service and experienced the training yourself, knowing how difficult a job it is, and even in some cases knowing some of the people that were there, can you say anything that would elevate our confidence level in our law enforcement?
I will tell you this. Right now, you're seeing a lot of men and women in the Secret Service that I've just heard are requesting to get back onto, say, Trump's detail. You're seeing a lot of them ashamed of what's happening, that wants to take control. Just recently, I just read an email that went out from a counter sniper officer, technician, that went across to all colleagues within the Secret Service, and that we need to change this. This culture needs to change. So you're seeing this within the men and women on the front line. They're embarrassed. They look at this more than just only a paycheck. And they're true patriots. So you're seeing that push through coming through.
A redoubling of efforts?
Well, you're seeing that from the lower ranks.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want this as much as, I don't want this type of stuff.
How can our listeners and viewers contact you if they want to?
They can reach out to American United Foundation .com. You can leave a message over there. If you'd like to follow us on Twitter, you can look up me on Twitter. It's at Tony_Sabio.
Okay. We'll put those in the description, too, of today's episode, so they'll find you.
Definitely.
Thank you, Tony. It's been great to see you.
All right.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Wow, that was valuable perspective.
It was. He's an incredibly experienced man, and we were honored to have his appearance here at HonorThyVote. I'm feeling a little better knowing how Secret Service agents are doubling down to make sure this level of failure never happens again. In future episodes of HonorThyVote, we're going to end the program with reading off some of the more interesting, is that the right word to use? Cases of individuals who've been arrested and convicted for voter and election fraud, and give you some sense of, well, crime does not pay, right? All right, here's one example. Former president of Atlantic City Council, the president of the council, arrested for fraudulent mail-in ballots.
There's another one. Tallahassee woman arrested for using 11 dead people's names on forms.
Here's another one. A former Texas City Council candidate arrested for election fraud.
Alabama state representative arrested for election fraud.
These are just a few of the titles. You can read the entire stories, their names, in some cases even the mugshot, and you can see that all on OperationEyeball.com. Click on the Arrest and Convictions tab, and you'll see the crime does not pay. And if you're thinking about possibly meddling in the election, think twice, because you will be seen, you will be caught, and you will do prison sentences. So I promise you that. I can also promise you this. We'll be back again next week. Please tune in. Look for us at HonorThyVote.com. See you next time.
Bye.